Hello and welcome to the Hustle Over Everything podcast. I'm Alexander.
I'm your main man, Owen Osinde.
And welcome to the Hustler's Den. This is the podcast where you receive stories, tips, and strategies from entrepreneurs to grow your business and take yourself to the next level as a person. Owen, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Al. It's such a great weekend. Had such a blessed day with my family. My family's here out of town. And, we're having fun, man. We got together at the fireplace in the backyard. Over the past couple of weeks, it's been me, my parents, and my sister. So having my uncle, having my auntie, my cousin there, and all just chatting last night. It was great, man. It was great under the blue skies with the stars with a nice alcoholic beverage.
What are you drinking on?
I was actually drinking Manhattan. It was a JP Wise's Manhattan.
Okay.
So I had that on the rocks. You know me, man. I don't drink like whiskey. I'm a whiskey guy, but I never mix. I never mix my whiskey. I just drink it on the ice. That's what bosses do. You feel me? Yeah.
Had it straight.
Had it straight, bro. And then you're looking in the fire. You're thinking about your life. You're thinking about your future. And that liquor is just hitting you slowly. It's getting in your blood. And the Afro beats in the background.
Oh, what are you listening to?
I'm Burna Boy, bro.
I feel you. Burna Boy's been the vibe as of late for me. I don't know why, man. Especially his last album, African Giant. Loving that shit. Yeah,
man, it's hitting different. There's something about Burna Boy, like his music, like his rise to success, and even his rise just to like, to know like where he's at right now. It's actually just a great story, and the funny thing is we're trying to play him on my mom's Alexa, like Alexa, you say, hey, Alexa, da, 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 da.
Yeah.
So, I told Alexa, I'm like, hey, Alexa, play Afro beats. It was such a struggle, man. They're trying to play Afro beats. We're trying to play Burna Boy. We're trying to play whatever. And Alexa's not picking up. So a funny thing we realized, if you want to play like Afro beats on Alexa, say, hey, Alexa, play Summer Vibes. Like when you say Summer Vibes, it's going to take that as Afrobeat. So we played Summer Vibes, and all of Burna Boy's tracks were there, Wizkid, Techno, Davido, all these like Nigerian guys, like Ghanaian guys were like killing the game with the Afrobeat, tunes and everything. So if you have an Alexa out there, guys, just say Summer Vibes and it's going to pick it up.
Most definitely. All right, let's get into the pod, man. I'm excited. Today, we're actually doing a two-part series for you. We're splitting it up. We have Adam Rivietz on the podcast today. And today, he's talking about his influencer agency, #Paid. He's the CSO of #Paid. Essentially, he does all the sales. He's the one who kind of scaled the business up. So he has a lot of insight into one, influencer marketing, and two, scaling a business through sales. So we go deep into both of those. This episode is going to be predominantly on influencer marketing, and you can get a lot of details there because he goes really deep, and he uncovers something that I didn't really know as much of, the difference between influencers and creators, and that differentiation that we kind of had to uncover and go deep into over the podcast. So guys, I really want you to pay attention to that over the next podcast, Oh, what do you think real quick?
Yeah, I thought that was very interesting because one of the things that we were asking him about was, essentially anybody can be a influencer, right? Like when you really look at the landscape of Instagram right now, a lot of people are building up their profiles, they're building up a following. And I think we've crossed that threshold where, everybody's an influencer. Everybody has like, 10K, 15K followers. The Instagram product has matured over the years where people have built a following. But do they really have an influence? Are they really creating, or are they just posting beautiful photos of themselves? Like, pretty girls posting photos, guys who are chiseled and who are good looks, they get a good following. But are you essentially an influencer? Are you really an advocate for a specific theme, topic, or a particular niche? So it was interesting talking to Adam and seeing how his business transitioned from going from influencer to creator, and how even choosing a creator, there's actually an in-depth process to that, because we had Swish on before in the podcast, and he was a big advocate on influencer marketing. But, he's looking at the other side of influencers, but we're actually here talking about creators who you can actually, if I'm a Coca-Cola, I'm looking for this particular person. So it was interesting to learn that and seeing how influencer marketing is actually shaping up. And what I believe is the barriers to actually become an influencer or quote unquote creator are actually going to get tougher over the long period, because everybody's like, the pool is the same, but what makes you really stand out now? Before it's easy to get away with a following, comments, whatever, but now it's like, okay, what kind of impact do you have on your particular niche? And I think influencer marketing in general is like, to really make it now, you have to do more than just have a following and decent engagement. You actually have to stand for something behind you. So it's really good to hear him elaborate on that.
Yeah, most definitely. So it's going to be a great pod. I'm excited for you guys to hear it. Let's jump right in, cutting the fat, and it's going straight into the business tip of the week.
Mm-hmm.
So for this business tip of the week, I want to talk about tracking. If what doesn't get managed doesn't get measured. I said that completely wrong. What doesn't get measured doesn't get managed. That's what I wanted to say. And with our social media being such a important tool now, especially now, and seeing that a lot of our in-person tactics are harder to execute, social media has never been more important. So how are you tracking this? What can you do to make sure that you're ahead of the game? So I wrote down, I can't speak today, a few tips and a few platforms that I've used in the past to really keep me accountable and measure and track my analytics. So there's about 4 tools that I have for you guys. We got Creator Studio, which is a new tool from Facebook. This one's great because it allows you to see all your posts in one specific place. It gets to track the video views and it gets to track your Facebook posts all in one place. But this is top of the barrel. The other ones I like to get into specifically is Social Blade, Ninjalytics, and Google Data Studio. So let's dive right in. Real quick. Social Blade. Social Blade is one of the key tools to tracking your social media. It tracks Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, the YouTube as well, very well. But the tool that I think would be best for is for your Instagram and YouTube. Social Blade is a killer there. Are you familiar with Social Blade?
I'm not familiar with Social Blade at all. I've heard about the name, but I've never really played around with it. I've never dug deep into it and see what it is. So this is actually a great learning opportunity for me as well, man.
Great. So awesome. So what Social Blade does, which is great, is that it gives deep analytics that is way stronger than Instagram. Right now, Instagram will give you like your 7-day, maybe 14-day max when it comes to analytics and your following. So it goes deeper into your following over like the last 6 months almost, and has graphs and details your follower count and your engagement rate to showcase how well your account's doing, and it gives it a grade actually of how well your account's doing. This is one great tool to track how well your page is doing and also other people's pages. As a marketer, this is one thing I do to check on other influencers before I work with them. I worked with a bunch of influencers, and this is one thing I did to foolproof. One, and like, hey, whoa, she's legit. Her audience is legit. We should give her money, and we should, work with her. I can give you actually some more examples as we go through it. Another one is Ninjalytics. Ninjalytics is killer. Have you heard of Ninjalytics?
Nope, not at all, man.
Awesome. So, you're keeping the education rolling. All right,
exactly.
So Ninjalytics is a platform very similar to Social Blade, but it dives even deeper, and it's specifically for Instagram. So this one is like, I guess, niching out the Instagram platform on Social Blade. It's almost like they saw, all right, Social Blade is doing this. Did they give the YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, We're just going to focus on Instagram and dive 10 times deeper. Ninjalytics goes deeper to showing, hey, this is have follower-unfollower ratios. What's the engagement rate? What are the best posts that's doing well on the page? How is it doing over time? And it's great because it gives you like an easy PDF option that you can just click a button and get a whole PDF graph on your Instagram account. So if you're ever to send it something to like a client or anybody that needs to see it, you can just easily pull up your Ninjalytics, hit PDF, get it out, print it out, send it over. You know, it's easy, breezy tool. And trust me, guys, you'll love that one.
How convenient is that, man? Like just
Super.
actually print out something and send, okay, these are my stats. Check it out.
Exactly. The next one is Google Data Studio. This one is a little bit more complicated because you have to connect it to your Google Analytics. But once you connect to your Google Analytics, the availability of just popping open your Google Data Studio and seeing different graphs of your analytics is so much easier. Guys, I'm telling you, if you are doing paid advertising, if you're trying to track traffic to your blog or website or your YouTube channels, and you're trying to see, hey, how much traffic is coming from specific links, this is the way to go. You got to use your Google Analytics and connect it to a data studio and measure how you're doing using their graphing tools. It's a very simple and easy way, and it creates a dashboard for you to look at every single day to see how you're doing. If you're not doing this, it's kind of blocking yourself. You're probably just using an Instagram account, and then you having like several dashboards all across your social channels. Use this. This is one thing we're looking to implement on Hustle Over Everything. And yeah, man, I definitely think Data Studio is something to go for once you have your Google Analytics up and running properly. Yeah, and that wraps up the business tip of the week. Let me know what you guys think about that. DM me at 247hustler on Instagram. Let me know what you think. Have you used anything like that? Do you have any trackers that you use? I want to hear from you. Boom.
Boom, Al, you slapped that. That was great, man. That was a very good educational, couple of minutes over there, man. I really appreciate that, bro.
Thank you, man.
Exactly. So now we get into Hustler Nation. Hustle Nation, what's up, man? It's Mr. Hustle Muscle on the mic. You know what it is. So this message of the week is actually coming from a lot of reflection and what we've learned this past weekend. You know, we actually had a consultation with John Henry, and it really taught me a lot about how to approach your product. And over the years that, what I've done, what I've gone to build, or a simple product I started is you approach your business in a very general ways because you really want to, make it one size fits all. But moving forward, the best way to really analyze your business is you really need to look at what it is that you actually do. What is it that's your true differentiating factor? One of the things that we have to do moving forward is look at how we're going to make our podcast even better and make it stand out amongst other business podcasts. There's a term, depth versus width. When you're going wider, is you're really general. Like if you see your business podcast, okay, we interview entrepreneurs, we do whatever. But if you go deeper, you can say, okay, this is what we do. We do this, but we do it in this type of way. We have this apple juice, but we have these many ingredients that make the taste even better, that makes it taste like apple juice, but with a different twist to it. That's your differentiating factor. It's like an apple juice with something. And the way you look at this is you might think, we're not going to attract customers. We're not going to get as many people, but that is actually the opposite. When you actually get more specific about what you're doing, about what your product is, what your company does, you actually attract people who are going to be evangelists for your products. They're going to be the ones who are there they're going to be there for every single thing you do. You drop a podcast, you drop a product, you drop a t-shirt, they're going to buy it. Whatever it is, they're going to buy it. That's why you have people who line up for an Apple iPhone as soon as it drops in the market, because they are fans. So it goes back to the 1,000 true fans theory. You only need 1,000 true fans to really build a sustainable business. The people who are going to buy your tickets to your shows, who are going to buy events, come to your events, buy your merchandise and everything, because they're big fans of what you do, because you've built a community that is extremely specific, extremely niched, and it makes them excited to look forward to what you're doing every single week and every single day. So the message of the week is depth versus width. Look at your business, look at what you're doing, and ask yourself, are we widening? Are we widening with everything we're doing? Or can we go deeper and be even more specific in what we do and how we're going to serve our customers and how we deliver that value? So that is the message of the week, guys. It's more about depth and width, especially moving forward in 2020. It's an extremely competitive landscape out here. So you really need to be differentiating yourself the best way that you can. So you have a greater chance of succeeding in the marketplace. And that is it, guys. Take that in, soak it in, let it marinate, and, tailor your business and be more deeper with your customers.
That was great, man. That was great. Man, that conversation was great. We got to have our own type of conversation, like a whole pod on that, man. I can't wait to really dive deep into everything we talked about.
Exactly, man. And hopefully, we can also get that consultation with John Henry. We can share with our audience and saw John's thinking when he was looking to hustle over everything, and how someone who's done it at his scale, been on Vice, has started a VC fund, and he's one of those guys who really knows how to build audience, and it was a blessing having him coaching us to build an audience.
Most definitely. All right, let's get into the podcast housekeeping items. All right, guys, to support the podcast, we have two options. One is free, one is paid. If you're on Apple, make sure that you rate, write a review, and talk about our podcast. This makes a huge difference. If you're on Spotify, follow us and download the episodes. If you're on Google Play, hit subscribe and auto download so you'll be notified when we have a fresh piece of content ready to go for you. Guys, one thing we need to stress is that we're on YouTube now. Did you know that? Check us out on YouTube. Just search Hustle Over Everything. We come right up. You see the bright yellow branding and you cannot miss it. Subscribe and show your support. It makes a strong difference, guys. Support the Black-owned business, On Instagram, we're at 24/7 Hustler. Take a screenshot of the podcast and post it to your stories and tag us so we can see it and repost you. And we want to see and connect with you guys. We want to connect with the community. We are a community. So anything you want to add and chime in about, we want to know. We might just feature on the podcast. Moving forward, on Twitter, we are 24/7 Hustlers. On Facebook, we're Hustle Over Everything. Now, for paid options, I'm not done. Let me get into the email. Our weekly newsletter is called the 24/7 Hustle. It covers news in business, music, and culture through the entrepreneurship lens. Man, Owen has been busting his ass working on this. I got to give him kudos. I got to big my dog up. He's been working his ass off.
Cheers, bro. Appreciate it.
Quality content on a weekly basis. Guys, support this.
And also share it.
Yes.
Share with your friends too.
Yes. Share it. We're trying to grow it. We're trying to create a community here. So sharing it with people who are like-minded, who are entrepreneurs trying to grow themselves and grow their business is very key. Moving right along. Pay options, donations. Our Proud to Pay program link is in the description down below. We appreciate any support. We have a full stack of merch on our website. You can go pick up a Hustle Over Everything t-shirt or a hat. Owen is currently wearing the sweater. I'm not today. I'm just wearing a classic black tee. Owen's wearing it up. But yeah, moving forward, let's jump right into the show.
All right, so let's get into the show. Adam, how you doing today, man?
I am great. Thank you guys for having me. Excited to be on the show.
I'm excited to have you.
I'm excited to have you as well. The history with hashtag paid with me and the company is I remember when the idea was starting out, back in when I was a part of the DMZ at Ryerson, and I met your co-founder, Brian Gold. Yep. And at the time when he pitched to me, hashtag paid, and I'll let you talk about what hashtag paid is. I was like, wow, this is a brilliant idea because influencer marketing was just in its infancy, but there was no really a go-to platform to really find influencers and really build your relationship with them. So I thought it was a great idea, and I'm so proud of you guys just to see how far you've come along and how big the company is, and turning down offers on Dragon's Den. I remember watching that episode as well. But if you could tell us how would you define what hashtag paid is?
For sure. essentially hashtag paid helps companies like Toyota, Coca-Cola, large companies through to startups to turn influencer marketing into a scalable media channel. Dating back to the founding of the company in 2013, we actually thought of the idea when a close friend of ours blew up on Instagram. Her name's Ronnie. Her handle's Inspired to Be Fit. Check her out. She was going through a very difficult time in her life at that point and wanted to change her whole life around. So she started documenting a fitness journey on Instagram. And to hold herself accountable to this goal, she would post every time she went to the gym, every time she made a healthy meal. And 6 months later, she racked up over 100,000 followers on Instagram. And we were blown away. We started analyzing her feed and we realized, hey, her followers are not only opting in to consume her content, but they're asking her, what sports bra are you wearing? What blender are you using? What protein are you drinking? And she'd endorse all these products and services and ultimately drive awareness and sales for these brands without getting paid. So on one hand, we wanted to help her get paid, but on the other hand, we were amazed by the trust that her followers had in her. And when we got her paid, we were impressed by the fact that marketers trusted these influencers. The entire foundation of the industry was trust. But now that you date ourselves back to present day, it's come such a long way to the point that we actually don't even call them influencers anymore. And we're focused on creator marketing, turning, as I mentioned, influencer marketing into this scalable media channel. So bringing that trust back. And I can speak to how we do that, I'm sure, throughout the interview.
You dropped out of school to start a business. Like, how was that time in your life like that made you really come to that decision?
Yeah, I mean, it was something that I had always sort of considered. I was never someone who thought that you had to have a degree to succeed in this life. Mm-hmm. I think it comes down to hustle. If you're not necessarily a hustler or don't bet on yourself and you want to go the traditional route of getting a job and working your way up, a degree can help. It's not even the gateway necessarily to your dream job. It just can help you maybe even get an interview. And so I always said, I'm only going to university to get a degree, to get a job, to make money. But if I could figure out how to make money without the degree, do I really need it? Is what I would always ask myself. And so I went to Western for a couple of years. I thought I would go to Ivy and get a business degree like my older brother did. And in the end, I didn't have the grades to get into Ivy. I sort of ran my own business and played a lot of online poker in first and second year. And I had about a 68 average when you need an 80 to get in. So I'm sitting in my apartment at the start of my third year saying, hey, I can spend another 2 years in London, Ontario at Western to get a BA in philosophy, which, if that's what you want, good for you, but that's not what I intended on going for. So I said, hey, I don't really want to waste any more of my own time since it's not the direction I want to go in. And I was fortunate that my parents were paying for my school, but I didn't even want them to waste their money on it because I just didn't think it was valuable to have that degree. And if anything, I'd rather them invest in me being an entrepreneur. So I ended up dropping out and it was challenging at first, I think. Just building up the skills that I never developed at school, like waking up early and making calls during 9 to 5 and like just being a business person. I think that was difficult. Giving up friends and just relationships and the partying of Western when you're 20 years old, like that's what you should be doing. So that personal battle of missing friends and missing that, what you're supposed to do at 20. So coming back to the city, moving back into my parents' house, and then ultimately starting my app development agency, Entourage Apps, that I ran before this. It was a great experience, and I'm happy I did, and I wouldn't change what I did for a second. But there were definitely a few points where it was a challenge, sort of balancing being a kid and then trying to start my career on my own without a degree.
Oh man, like I know how like that living in London is like, because I grew up in Sarnia, Ontario. You know Sarnia, right? Like kind of
Right.
like 40 minutes southwest. And I can just imagine you sitting there like battling, like, should I do this philosophy degree? Like, or should I just go build a company? And especially when you don't like school, like you don't like waking up and going to class and studying, that must have been tough. So good on you, man. Like, and how did you like get the idea to like go into app development? Like, what did you see at that point to really tell you that, this is the lane I need to go to really build this, get a business going from the ground up?
It was a very inspiring video, almost exactly like this one. I was scrolling down my Facebook feed one day. This is September 2012. So maybe my first or second week of that third year of university. And I was actually running a business prior to this, the app business that essentially organized high school events. So mostly proms and after proms, where we sold a package that offered the corsage or boutonniere, your flower, your limo ride, and then your ticket to an after prom party that we'd host at various nightclubs downtown. And this is the long story because I think it's just nice to include here. I brought a partner into that business who I didn't know very well. And long story short, for that part of the story, we didn't end up being partners for very long because there were some trust issues there. Mm-hmm. And we ended up competing against each other in this business for a couple of years, where I was running my company and he went off and started a company with a very similar name and the exact same business model. And so we were competing with each other, but how we actually ran the business was by going on Facebook and finding the kids in the 12th grade who had the most friends, essentially the influencers of their grade. And so we'd reach out to these kids and say, hey, we'll give you a cut of the ticket sales commission for selling them. And so when this ex-partner of mine was launching his business, I was creeping him on Facebook every day. We're in third year university. I'm like, who's he befriending in the 12th grade? Because they're probably going to be a rep that he's reaching out to. So I'm like religiously following every move that he's doing on Facebook. And funny enough, he happens to like a page called Millionaire by 25. I'm sitting about to drop out of school, 20 years old. I'm like, I want to be a millionaire by 25. This sounds fucking dope. So I clicked and that guy, Millionaire by 25, happened to be interviewing this legend kid named Spencer Costanzo. He was 18 years old in the 12th grade, had $20,000 saved up from buying books at garage sales and reselling them on Amazon, and took that $20,000, hired a bunch of teams in India and in China, came up with app ideas, put out over 100 apps in 1 year, and made over $1 million.
What?
All while in school, finishing the 12th grade. He was from New Jersey. I was blown away. I'm watching this video. I'm like, fuck school. I need to be this kid. I'm going to make $1 million putting 100 apps out. It's so easy. And I literally watched this video over and over. I messaged them both on Facebook. They gave me books to read, courses to take online. I stopped going to class, became obsessed with like how to get an app on the App Store and the idea of earning passive income. And I dropped out like in October, November. And my first app came out in December 2012, which, funny enough, hearing your story about Sneaker Deck, my entire hypothesis for my first two apps was around if people love sneakers, they also love snapback and fitted hats. My first app was called My Snapbacks and documented every single new era snapback hat and let you take pictures of your hat collection and share them and then buy any new era hat. And then the second app was the exact same thing for fitteds. And so all my keywords and the whole trends that I was trying to piggyback off of was the whole sneaker obsession, because I always found that, hats and sneakers go hand in hand. So I thought that was a funny connection to your story. But yeah, that's how I was inspired to put these apps out. I found Millionaire by 25. His name's Corey Wadden. I actually connected with him like a week ago for the first time in 5 years. He randomly reached out and we caught up. And then, And then this Spencer Costanzo, and just seeing him being so young, 18, making $1 million, doing it firsthand, and then being able and willing to share how he did that with other people was amazing. And so I set the goal that from January to September 2013, my birthday's in September, in the 9 months, I would put out 27 apps, 3 per month. And by June, I had 22 apps out. Mm-hmm. Almost hit the goal, but then stopped putting the apps out because that's when we actually thought of the idea. That's when Ronnie blew up on Instagram, June 2013.
Get out of here.
It's unreal, man.
And again, the app company was called Entourage Apps, Entourage being my favorite TV show.
How did I know? I saw that and I was like, I bet he loves Entourage.
I always wanted
hilarious.
To be gold. That was my dream, be a Hollywood talent agent. And so when our friend blew up on Instagram, it seemed so obvious. Let's just represent her and get her paid and take a small cut.
That's hilarious. Yeah, you're actually probably like as close to the living person as it can.
That's Ari Gold, man. Yeah.
You know? So did you make money with the App Store before you put a button on that? With the app business?
Yeah. So now I can talk about it. It's not a big deal. Yeah. But the goal was really break even. So if I can, Mark Cuban talks about this in How to Win at the Sport of Business, which was like the first book I read when I dropped out of school. Mm-hmm. He says, if you can get paid to learn, don't go and get an MBA. He's not someone who advocates for dropping out. And when I met him, I told him I did, and he wasn't very happy about it.
You met Mark Cuban?
I did, right? The first day we launched #paid at TechCrunch Disrupt in San Francisco, where we were only there because David King, who set this whole interview up, told us to go there, told us to launch there, came with us to California, and made sure that we were at the event.
Amazing. So what was that interaction like with Mark Cuban?
It was pretty quick. I have seen every episode of Dragon's Den and Shark Tank. I'm obsessed. That's really my end game, is to, make a name for myself and make enough money from #paid to go and invest and advise in more companies and help more entrepreneurs succeed. So Brian, my co-founder, knew I was obsessed. We knew Cuban was going to be at this event, and we actually waited for probably 45 minutes next to the stage where he was coming down after a presentation he did, and we never saw him. He snuck out some back door, and then a couple hours later, we're on the main floor, thousands of startups, tons and tons of people, and I'm pitching I remember like a golf app on how to find your nearest golf course or something. And I get a tap on my shoulder. I turn around and it's Mark Cuban. He's like, "Oh, hey, Adam, your partner Brian said you really wanted to meet me and we're waiting before." And so we shook hands, and I was like, "I've seen every episode. I love Shark Tank. What do you think of influencer marketing?" And I don't know, he said, "We'll see where it goes," or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I read How to Win in the Sport of Business. I loved it. I dropped out. I'm paying for my own, my clients are paying for my education rather than me paying to go to school. And he's like, he made some comment about, maybe
education. Yeah. Yeah. I know Mark Cuban, he's big on education. Like he's like a big academic guy, like at Indiana University. Like I'm a big fan of Mark as well, Adam. I'm like you as well. I never miss an episode. I think I've watched every season of Shark Tank, but Dragon's Den, it was good, but it kind of went down a little bit. But yeah. But yeah, Mark's my favorite, man. Like he's like legit a maverick, like of course. Straight up.
But to go back and answer the question about the app business, I'm trying to think. So the goal was to just break even and ultimately learn how to develop apps and earn passive income and just understand the economy behind the internet. So the fact that I made any money, I was very happy. And then the fact that I made pretty much the average annual salary or household income salary of a Canadian was great. I think I profited about $55,000 that year from the business, which was great. My best app cost $600 to make and I think earned $35,000 in 3 months. That was the breadth of the revenue, this one particular app, which funny enough was a game guide to a children's game that I had never played. I had the developers make the app. I had a gamer, I believe he was from China, beat the game, figure out all the cheats, and they worked together, and I project managed the app and got it out.
All right, so now get back into the story now. You are talking with Ronnie, and she's telling her pain points, and you're like, all right, I could help here. Talk to us about getting hashtag paid off the ground.
Yeah. For sure. So we started with Ronnie. We said, hey, let's see. Our hypothesis was, can we get a company to pay someone to post about them on social media? Like, this was, again, 7 years ago. The word influencer didn't exist. People didn't have emails in their bios and all these things we have now. So it was, can we get a company to pay her to promote them? And that would be step one. And so we did that in the summer of 2013. We got her paid by a handful of her favorite companies. And then we went out and scrolled through Instagram. I shit you not, for probably like 48 hours straight. I remember we had a sleepover. We scrolled through Instagram nonstop for like 24 hours, 48 hours. It was just make a list of every single person you can find that has an email address in their bio on Instagram. And then we went out and emailed them all one by one. I think it was about 700 people on a Friday. And by Monday, 500 of them had signed up to our email list, being interested in how to monetize their Instagram account. So we said, holy shit, I think we're onto something. People want to make money off of Instagram. There's nobody doing it. And at that point, we reached out to all these 500 who signed up and said, well, what companies do you want to work with? And they all listed 5 or 10 brands they wanted to work with. And we started emailing all those companies. But that just led us to thousands of email threads, drop boxes filled with content that these creators were submitting, Excel sheets trying to track it all. And it was a total shit show to manage. So we said, hey, let's develop software to automate this whole process of finding the most relevant people, collaborating with them, and tracking the results of their posts. So that's when we started with my team in India, and then found some local developers through Western to start building this platform that we then applied to the DMZ with. We were actually called Insta Elite at the time, the elite of Instagram. But for a lot of reasons, that name didn't work. And the platform was sort of an affiliate model, where we thought, hey, let's get these creators who have a lot of followers to post any products that they like. And if they drive traffic to our page on our site that features all the products that they like, and their followers actually buy them, we'll make a commission and we'll split it with the creator. But that funnel of seeing a post on Instagram to clicking the link in bio, which was the only way of doing these things, to then going through that whole journey just took so long, so many clicks, that the sales weren't coming and the revenue wasn't there for either of us. So then we actually pivoted our model fairly quickly. We moved into the DMZ June 10th, 2014 as Insta Elite. And by June 26th, 16 days later, we actually switched the name to hashtag paid, incorporated the company, and started with our new model, which was the idea, our first version of the open marketplace, where the brands and the creators could come on a software tool and connect with each other directly. And that was, really what got our team excited and what got our investors excited as well.
What's your role in hashtag paid?
Yeah, so I've played almost every role in the company. I think day one, I might have played CEO for a little bit and tried to raise money while Bri was out selling. We both were not very good in those respective roles. So we actually switched about 6 months into the business. Bri became CEO. I went out to start selling. And thankfully we made that change, or I don't think we'd be sitting here right now. I ended up closing one of our first enterprise deals with Pepsi. And then one of those executives who was in the boardroom watching us pitch said, hey, we're going to actually move money from one agency we've been working with for a while to hashtag paid. And then someone from that agency ended up calling Bri the next day saying, hey, you guys are onto something. You're taking money from my bucket of budget. I want to invest in you. And that's how we actually ended up raising our first round in 2015, was by a big deal with a big customer, and someone at an agency who understood, what the future looked like we did, came and wrote us our first check which then we turned into our angel round that got us out of the DMZ and then into our first office.
Wow.
And so to now go back to that question, once we switched and I was in sales, I started off as our first salesperson. Then as we hired some senior executives who actually knew about the ad world and, were further along than I was, that's when I became the manager of the sales team and started moving away from actually closing deals, but supporting the salespeople on deal strategy and whatnot. And then most recently, we've actually now brought on an even more senior executive to manage the sales operations. So I am now sort of straddling marketing and sales, doing things like this, speaking at about 50 conferences a year, traveling 200 days a year to really just be the face of the company, get the word out, and teach marketers about the future of this industry so that I can build pipeline for my sales team.
So like from that point, like when you guys switched to this new model, what's the type of traction that you saw in the first year from switching to this model? People coming on, and what was like the financial traction that you guys made once you guys got your investment and things started rolling?
For sure. So when we opened up the marketplace, it was really exciting because like I mentioned, with Entourage apps, my goal was to earn passive income, put out an asset on the internet and have people just interact with it or buy it and sit back and earn cash. And that was always sort of the end game with #paid, figure out how to build a marketplace and build up enough supply and demand for them to transact. And we just take a cut, just like Airbnb or Uber. And, when we initially launched it, that was 5 years ago, and the world still didn't know what an influencer was. So it didn't matter that we had the best software in the world to access them. If you fundamentally don't get what an influencer is or why you'd want them for your business, you don't care that you have a software to do that or a tool to find them. So we had to, based on the immaturity of the industry, we actually had to take a step back and say, hey, we need to invest a lot into educating the world that this idea needs to become a media tactic and eventually a real media channel. And so that's when we said, hey, let's shift from just going after any brand, mom and pop brands under the sun. Let's go work with some Fortune 1000s. Let's get some big case studies. Let's do the work on their behalf and show them that this can be what we say it is. And so that took 5 years. That took a lot longer than we ever expected, but it's happened. When we launched the company, they estimate that $100 million was spent on sponsored posts on social media, and now they estimate $10 billion will be spent on sponsored posts this year alone. So the industry's seen tremendous growth, and with that, marketers are saying, hey, we've invested millions now. The biggest companies have invested millions into this channel. They've tried a variety of agencies. They've tried software partners, and they're beginning to staff up internally. They're hiring folks to do this work, but you still need a piece of software to help automate. Just like when Brian and I started, managing all these people and relationships is so challenging. So what we did last summer was another, not necessarily pivot, but an add-on to our existing business, which operated like an ad agency, where our clients would come to us the last 5 years and say, hey, this is our goal, do the work for us. And what kept us competitive was the fact that we had built our own technology that our team would use on behalf of our clients. But starting last year, this new business model was now actually licensing the software that our team has been using back to our clients. So instead of selling services, we're now selling software. So if any company, small to large, has the bandwidth and the expertise internally to manage that communication with the creators, has the strategy and understands how to report and analyze, then they can use our tool and just pay a subscription fee, and all of their media dollars go towards the creators or the paid social whitelisting versus, fees coming to us to manage that work.
Amazing. I think that's a really smart move just because a lot of companies are starting to vertically integrate their marketing. You know, they're hiring a paid social guy or like a SEM person, and they want to streamline that whole thing through Facebook and YouTube. So having like a software as a service is a smart play, and it must be accelerating now with COVID. So now, how do you see the industry going with influencer market becoming more saturated though? Do you see that like being verified the only way to get someone that's qualified? How do you find the qualified users really?
Okay, so this goes back to my comment about the entire foundation of the industry being built on trust. Mm-hmm. And now, 6, 7, 8 years later, the biggest problem in the industry is trust. Marketers no longer trust influencers to solve their critical business objectives. They don't believe that their followers are real. They don't believe the metrics that marketers or influencer marketing companies are using to evaluate their performance, aka likes and comments are bullshit and don't tell you anything. So those are the two major issues. We don't trust influencer marketing because we don't trust influencers and we don't trust the metrics. So for the last year and a half, we've invested a ton of resources, time, money into solving those two problems. Part of that answers your question, which is the first pillar of working with creators, not influencers. So at one point, our network peaked at maybe 40,000 influencers a few years back, and we've since re-scrubbed the network according to our new criteria of what a creator is. So there's both quantitative and qualitative criteria that we use to assess our creators. So on the quantitative side, it's things that you're used to seeing. Certain follower counts, maybe it's at least 5,000 followers, or posting at least once a day, or having a certain engagement rate, or a follower health score, making sure that a certain percentage of their followers are real. Those are the quantitative things. We've got about 20 different data points that we look at quantitatively when they sign up and connect their accounts. On the flip side, we now have qualitative, which is really the difference between a creator and an influencer, which is that a creator is the professional and the influencer is the amateur. What does that mean? It's that the creator treats their work like a craft, whereas an influencer is looking to make a quick buck. So a creator will only work with brands they care about, and they'll keep their collaborations up forever. Whereas an influencer may work with Honda today, delete the post, and work with Toyota tomorrow, because all they care about is the money. And then it comes down to the content. A creator will always create high quality original content for a campaign because it's their craft. That's why they have a following to begin with. They love producing content and they do it well. Whereas an influencer will repost an asset that a brand made or something that they shot for a previous company. And so because of all of those factors and creators following the best practices, they've developed real audiences. They've earned their influence, whereas influencers are buying fake followers and buying fake engagements to manipulate their numbers.
That makes
sense. So like when you did the creators, like now that you're focused on creators and you scrubbed out the influencers who, like Alex or I, can be considered an influencer at some level, what is the drop-off that you saw from the amount of creators that you have compared to like influencers? Because I can imagine creators as a small number of them compared to influencers. So
for us, it was about 50%.
50%, eh?
25,000 creators. And there's still nuance. I mean, some influencers we do still work with because a client will want that person, and we want to do best for our client. We might recommend that they don't use that person, but ultimately we'll make it as easy and streamlined and hopefully prove to them by the end that they should have gone with someone else to see a better return.
In an interview, you said you shouldn't use influencers, or I guess in this time you maybe could call it creators, for a direct response campaign. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Where do I want to start? Okay. Influencer marketing has typically been thought of as a top or middle of the funnel tactic. So to drive awareness or to drive consideration. If you're driving awareness, you might use people with huge followings, or you're going to use a ton of people with smaller followings, the macro versus micro argument. That's top of the funnel. Mid funnel, I don't think it really matters what type of creator you use in terms of size. Usually smaller following folks have a higher engagement rate, and thus their following will probably listen to their message more or take it more seriously because they're more relatable. But the most important thing in the middle of the funnel is the type of content. We often find that at the top, you're going to use photos because all you're trying to do is get your logo or your product in people's faces. Whereas in the middle, now you're trying to convince someone that they should choose your product or service over a competitor. And the best way to do that is with video, whether it's through stories or through video posts on different networks. And so the content type is very important at the middle. And then at the bottom of the funnel, that's where you start driving those direct response results and drive performance. And we do that with something called whitelisting. So whitelisting is where you buy paid social ads, just like you or any agency does. But instead of buying them through, let's say, Coca-Cola's handle, the ad would come through a creator's handle. So imagine you're scrolling down your feed. Instead of seeing Coca-Cola sponsored, it would say Adam Rivietz in paid partnership with Coca-Cola. And that one little change can drive a ton more performance. In that case, we see up to 7 times the performance, on average 2 or 3 times. So that's more clicks, lower cost per click, lower cost per acquisition, just by having the message come from a creator versus a brand, which really reinforces that people want to be spoken to by people, not by companies, even when it's an ad in their feed versus an organic post that you opted in to consume.
That's a very big gem. A very big gem.
Yeah, whitelisting is honestly the key to social media performance right now. And that's just because, again, it's the creator's content. It's their likeness that you're leveraging, but you have the power to then choose what piece of content, edit the caption, and maybe make it more direct response heavy or have a stronger call to action than maybe the creator is willing to post on their feed. So it gives you more options. And then pixel, you can use the Facebook pixel, like I'm sure you do on these ads, to do the same thing with whitelisting. So you can now track from the second a follower is exposed to a creator's post all the way through to that checkout page or sign up page.
Mm-hmm. The only thing you have to make sure is that you're really data efficient there, because you got to really connect with the influencer and connect with the back end of Facebook, get your audience is correct, and just make sure your pixel targeting is right there. You don't want to mess that up at all.
You're teeing me up for the perfect response. So yes, you do need to obviously have the right data to make sure you're making educated decisions. But with whitelisting, our platform, what we recently built in, is the ability to actually pass through that access to buy through the creator's handle in your ad manager. So historically, when we would do this for managed service clients, we would have access in our #paid ad manager to thousands of creators' handles, and we would go in and buy the ads on behalf of our clients because we have our own buyers internally. But now that I mentioned companies are bringing this in-house, they said, we want to do the buying, but it's such a pain in the ass, like you mentioned, to go through that hassle of doing the Facebook handshake with every creator you want to work with to make sure you're sharing the data properly. So we recently, like 2 or 3 months ago, launched a feature that with the click of a button, you can take the content produced in our platform and the creators that you contracted and port them into your ad manager to now buy the whitelisting and do the optimizations yourself, which may be relevant for you and your clients and something we can explore afterwards.
All right, guys, that wraps up part 1 of the episode. Check back next week for part 2. Looking forward to seeing you. Peace.